Y'all, this latest leak is wild. Word on the street is that Barry White's passing might not have been as natural as we thought. Allegedly, Clive Davis had a hand in planning his death. Now, we all know the music industry has its fair share of shady dealings. But if these new claims are true, this could be one of the biggest scandals yet. Okay, this is where things get real. Barry White wasn't like some of these other celebrities who came into the industry chasing fame at any cost. He had talent, he had ambition, but what he wasn't about to do was sell his soul, especially not to Clive Davis, who was one of the most powerful figures in the music business at the time. Barry saw firsthand how greed was ruining artists, and he wasn't afraid to speak on it. He even tried to warn other musicians, but most of them weren't trying to hear it. Now here's where it gets messy. Clive Davis, just like Diddy, has always been surrounded by whispers, especially about his alleged obsession with the male artists under his label. But it's not just that. People have long questioned why so many musicians tied to Clive ended up dying under very suspicious circumstances. And Barry, he wanted no part of that. Instead of sticking around and risking the same fate, he made one of the boldest moves a black artist could make back then. He started his own music label.
Man in America is very tough, my friend. I sit from one side of the table now, but now as I speak, I'm talking about the other side that I once sat at. It is tough to be a black man when a man's pride is taking care of his family, providing food for the table, providing a great environment, a nice place to live, and suddenly someone says, you can't do that anymore.
He wasn't just a singer, he was writing, producing, even acting. He was a real hustler, and it paid off. He took the industry by storm, won 2 Grammy Awards, and was on top of the world until things took a dark turn. See, Barry White's story started way before the fame. He was born in Texas in 1944 to a mother who later found out his father was already married to another woman. That revelation had Barry real quick to erase his mother's last name from his birth certificate and claim his dad's name instead. But his real upbringing, that was in South Central LA, deep in the streets, running wild with his younger brother Daryl. The two of them stayed getting into trouble, arrested multiple times. Daryl even got locked up in juvie when he was just 8, but life in the streets came with consequences. Daryl ended up losing his life in a violent dispute, and depending on who you ask, it was either over gang issues or a fight about $20 in change. Either way, it broke Barry. He struggled to make sense of how his brother went down one path while he ended up on another. In his autobiography, Love Unlimited, Barry admitted that music was what saved him from meeting the same fate. But it wasn't an immediate change. Even after Daryl passed, Barry kept getting into trouble. Then, in 1960, when he was 16, he got arrested again, this time for stealing Cadillac tires. That landed him in jail for 4 months. But this is where everything shifted. While locked up, he heard Elvis Presley's It's Now or Never on the radio, and something just clicked. Right then and there, he decided he was done with street life. He was going to make something of himself, and he wasn't looking back. And honestly, that moment changed everything.
You got into a lot of trouble at one point, or your friends did. You hung around with a bad crowd.
That's true. That's very true.
What straightened you out?
The bad crowd. I guess when I turned 17, I looked around me, and everywhere I looked, it was depression. People who were just going around in circles. I just felt that it was a better way of life.
So, Barry had this big realization on his 18th birthday. Now, not only was it his birthday, but it also marked the beginning of his last year in high school. Instead of hitting the books, Barry made a bold decision that would set his future on a whole different path. He straight up skipped class and walked to Capitol Records headquarters in Hollywood. There he stood, staring at that building for hours, just imagining his future. Now, here's the wild part. Barry didn't even know how to read or write music when he started, but let me tell you, it didn't hold him back. He grew up listening to his mum's classical music collection and would practice what he heard on the piano she bought him. In fact, there were rumors that Barry was the mysterious pianist behind Jesse Belvin's hit song Good Night My Love, probably because they both lived in the same neighborhood. Sounds like he was already making moves before we even knew his name. At 14, Barry noticed his voice changing, and when he started sounding like a full-grown man, his mom literally cried. She knew her baby boy wasn't a baby anymore. Imagine how shocking that must have been for her.
I woke up one morning when I was 14 and...
You woke up?
I spoke to my mother, and I scared both of us.
Barry's life took a big turn after he left the streets behind, though. After a stint in jail for stealing, he almost faced a murder charge, but was later cleared. By the 1960s, Barry had started to dive into music, first singing in groups and working with small independent labels. But even then, he was already putting his name on the map with songs like Too Far to Turn Around and working with groups like the Atlantics and the Majestics. Barry was all about the hustle. He was heavily influenced by the likes of James Cleveland, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and Marvin Gaye. But just like Marvin, Barry's relationship with his father was not the best. In 1965, he produced Feel Alright for the Ben Cantos, and by 1967, Barry discovered the incredible Felice Taylor and helped her hit big with I Feel Love Coming On. The song blew up, especially in the UK. In 1969, Barry signed with Forward Records and started producing hits left and right, but he didn't stop there. He started his own girl group, Love Unlimited, in the early 70s, and that was just his big break. Barry was like the African-American version of Motown's Berry Gordy, who made waves with the Supremes and all those legendary acts. In 1973, Barry created the Love Unlimited Orchestra, a 40-piece band that was originally meant to back his girl group. But of course, Barry had bigger plans. That year, he released Love's Theme. The song hit #1 on the Billboard pop charts, and that was just the start. Barry kept climbing the charts with hits like I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More Baby. It reached #1 on the R&B charts and #3 on the pop charts. Talk about a powerhouse. By 1979, Barry made another big move and left his label to launch his own record company, Unlimited Gold, with CBS Columbia. Things were looking great for Barry, even when other labels were struggling. But, well, you know the industry. It's never that easy for the legends. Throughout his music career, Barry White built a dedicated fan base that always showed him love and support. However, when the disco era came to an end, his popularity on the pop charts began to fade. Despite releasing several albums over the next few years, none of them could replicate the success he had once enjoyed. On top of that, his record label, Venture, was losing money, forcing Barry to focus on touring. He eventually shut the label down in 1991. But in 1991, things started looking up for Barry. He made a strong comeback with his album Put Me in Your Mix, which helped him climb back to the top of the charts. Each of his following albums did better than the last, and in 1994, his album The Icon Is Love reached #1 on the Billboard R&B charts. His single Practice What You Preach gave him his first #1 hit on the Billboard R&B singles charts in almost 20 years, and the album even got nominated for a Grammy. Barry also released a duet with Tina Turner called In Your Wildest Dreams, adding another highlight to his career. Barry's last album came out in 1999 and featured the hit song Staying Power. This song earned him 2 Grammy Awards, one for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance and another for Best Traditional R&B Vocal Performance. But Barry wasn't just focused on music, he ventured into acting too. In 1995, he appeared in a Prodigy commercial as a bus driver, and he also did voice work for TV shows like The Simpsons and King of the Hill. In addition to his own career, Barry White tried to give advice to younger artists about the pressures that come with success in the music industry. One person he warned was Luther Vandross, who had signed with Clive Davis in 1981. Barry saw how Clive was shaping Luther's career, and he worried about the toll it would take on him. In the same year Luther signed with Clive Davis, he released his debut album Never Too Much, which became a huge success and established him as a star. But like Barry had predicted, it came with a personal cost. Over time, whispers about Luther's sexuality started circulating, and although he denied the rumors, friends later confirmed them after his death. Luther's health began to deteriorate in the 1990s, with complications from diabetes affecting his ability to perform. He eventually suffered a stroke in 2003, and fans noticed a significant change in his appearance. The weight fluctuations he experienced over the years also affected his self-esteem, and despite encouragement from friends like Whitney Houston, who reminded him that his fans cared about his talent, Luther remained insecure insecure about his image. At the age of 54, Luther passed away due to his health issues. Barry White, too, passed away in 2004 at the age of 58 due to heart problems and complications related to his weight. Meanwhile, Clive Davis, who is nearly 100 years old, is still alive, but the rumors surrounding Clive's possible involvement in the deaths of Barry and Luther continue to this day. What do you think? Do you believe Clive Davis had a hand in either of their deaths? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any juicy celebrity stories like this.